Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, former Republican Congressman from Ohio, Bob McEwen, and former White House Special Assistant to President Clinton, Richard Socarides. All right, gentlemen, let me start with you, Congressman. You saw that this is Morton's underling, basically. It's his number 2 guy who comes out and says what he meant. And just so our viewers know, this is what Morton said to the Chicago Tribune. He doesn't think the Arizona law is good government, that ICE will not necessarily process illegals sent to it. And this was his explanation. He says, this is to the Chicago Tribune, the best way to reduce illegal immigration is through a comprehensive federal approach, not a patchwork of state laws. So I ask you, Congressman, is this underling's explanation that what he was really trying to say was that they're going to prioritize the criminal aliens? Does that hold water?
He let the cat out of the bag. The fact is they weren't going to enforce our laws. And when Arizona said, we will enforce them for you, they said, well, watch out. You'll have to refer them to us, and we're not going to prosecute them when they come to us. The fact is that the law that Arizona passed is much weaker than the federal law. The federal law says you have to carry papers at all times, and for no provocation, you have to be able to present them. And if you fail to present them, that is a felony. What Arizona law says, you don't have to present them unless you're caught in another crime, but they will ask you, and if you don't have the papers, you will have committed a misdemeanor. Now, why in the world this man whose title is immigration enforcement says, I will not enforce immigration laws?
Well, let me say a couple things.
Let me just say one thing before, and then I'll let you respond, Richard. I just also want to point out to our viewers that now we've had a letter sent by 26 lawmakers to Janet Napolitano, the head of Homeland Security, demanding that she come out and speak to this. They want her to publicly condemn Mr. Morton's remarks. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, what I want to say, first of all, is let's not be guilty here of doing what politicians have done for so long around this issue. I mean, Americans are frustrated with a broken immigration system, and the reason they're frustrated is because politicians and people in the media and people in the immigration debate play politics with this immigration issue. Let me say, first of all, that we don't really know exactly what this government official said because he was paraphrased.
Yes, we do.
Well, he was paraphrased.
No, excuse me, because he was quoted in the Chicago Tribune. We here at America Live called ICE directly. We were the first first television program to break this. We called and asked, do they have it right? Because we read it and said that can't be.
Well, I don't
and
think
they said,
quotes.
yes, the Chicago Tribune got it right. We stand by those quotes.
I don't think they had quotes on it around it, but I think what his point was that they have some discretion in each one of these cases, and there are serious questions about whether or not this Arizona law is constitutional. The Department of Justice has recently announced that they've undertaken a review about whether or not to seek a court order declaring it unconstitutional. I mean, I think
the federal law is unconstitutional.
Well, I think there's no question that the federal government is going to enforce the immigration laws in Arizona and everywhere else.
Really?
So yeah, I don't really think there's any question.
Well, there wasn't any question before Mr. Morton made his statements. And just so you know, I'm looking at the Chicago Tribune article, and the quote is.
I think you're being a little disingenuous here because
really?
I think, well,
because I'm going by what Mr. Morton said, which was, and I quote, there are quotation marks, that the Arizona's new law is, quote, not good government. Quote, I don't think the Arizona law or laws like it are the solution. I mean, the question, Congressman.
That's not saying he's not going to enforce it. That's saying he doesn't think it's a good idea.
All right, well, then the Chicago Tribune, then why didn't, when we called ICE and asked them whether they had it right, why didn't they say the Chicago Tribune has the import wrong? When he said, let me make my point, sir. Don't talk over me. It's more helpful to the viewers if I make my point than you make yours. If that's right, if the Chicago Tribune misrepresented what Morton meant or said, then when we called them and asked them to clarify whether they stood by these remarks, why didn't they say the quotes are accurate, but when the paper wrote, he said his agency will not necessarily process illegals referred by Arizona. Why didn't they say to us, that part's not right?
Well, Megan, I think you showed at the top of this segment a clarification by the government as to what exactly this gentleman meant.
Okay, that's fine. They can clarify today, and that's how I teed up the segment by saying, do you buy it? Do you buy the clarification? You're now trying to take issue with the original reporting, suggesting that we've botched what he originally said. That's not the case, sir.
I'm not suggesting that you guys botched anything. I think that the Chicago newspaper was a little unclear as to exactly what he said. I think there was some paraphrasing going on.
No, they weren't.
I mean, I think it's an
important. They weren't. Not according to ICE.
Okay. Well, listen, Megan. I think the important story here is that we have a broken system and a problem that needs a comprehensive approach and a comprehensive solution.
And Arizona is fixing it.
Now, the people of Arizona with this law demonstrated the real anger on this. And I think the federal
Correct.
government needs to step in, and President Obama needs to step in and work with members of Congress.
And fire-
All right,
and fire
Congressman
Morton.
McEwen, you go.
Across the
You
board.
haven't had enough of a chance, and I apologize for that. Go ahead, sir.
What he needs to do is he needs to fire Morton and Napolitano, who are not enforcing the law. The fact is that nearly 20% of all of these people are OTM, other than Mexican, of people that are flooding into our country through this broken system that he refuses to implement. And the second highest kidnapping city in the world is Phoenix, Arizona. Now, it's not being done by cattle ranchers retiring from Idaho. It's done because the Washington bureaucrats refuse to enforce the law. And Mr. Morton let the cat out of the bag. He said, notwithstanding that we put our hand on the Bible and swore to uphold the law, we intend not to do it. And that's the problem with this administration.
I think he said today that they will continue to enforce the law. What we need, though, is
That they're going to
is a
prioritize
solution.
the criminal aliens as opposed to those apprehended
is a
who are not
solution
necessarily criminals.
where everyone is held accountable, where people who are here illegally can get legal,
Okay.
where employers are held accountable, and where the
Just
system
do it,
can
don't
be
talk.
fixed.
And I just want to point out.
I agree with the congressman.
I just want to point out that it was our own Trace Gallagher and his team that called ICE that day, the day that 2 days after the Chicago Trib published it, and specifically asked whether the not necessarily part of the story. And let me tell our viewers again, that the Chicago Tribune reports that John Morton, who heads up ICE, said his agency will not necessarily process illegals referred to them by Arizona, and that ICE told us that that part was accurate. So now you can make your own minds up about whether the testimony they offered today and since to couch it, to qualify it, is the real deal or not. But that's how it was originally reported. That's what they confirmed to us. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming out.
Thank you, Megan.
Well,
Their
coming up on
actions
Studio B
confirm
with
their
Shepard
words.
Smith in